everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new, then hi, my name is Caitlin, welcome, and today we are going to be going through all of the eyeshadow pans that I hit in 2022. This is a very requested video every year and I'm so excited to share with you all the juicy pans. We have 27 eyeshadow pans that we hit this year through different projects, through natural use, through all that good fun stuff. So if that sounds like a good time to you, definitely stick around, and if you like bright, fun, colourful makeup looks as well as project panning and shop my stashes, then definitely like and subscribe because this is the channel for you and it would mean the world to me. I am also doing Vlogmas. I know it's kind of coming to an end now, but if you're new, we have had so many videos throughout December that you can go back and look over. Also, there is a puppy next door that's not having a very good day today. It is crying a lot, so if you can hear that through the mic, I am very sorry. There's not really much I can do about it. So let's start from the order that we hit them. We are going to start in January. I don't have dates for all of these things, it's just when I hit them. So the first pan we hit this year, I might say this month instead of this year. I notice I do that so much. It's because I'm so used to doing project pan updates and they're monthly. So if I say this month, I actually mean this year. So I'm just going to put that out there now because editing Caitlin gets very annoyed with me when I do that. So just a disclaimer. So the first pan I hit this year was from my Carnival palette. I want to get more use out of this palette in the coming year just because it does still look quite new. But the shade we're talking about is Make Waves up here, which of course is the blue shade. Duh, hello, blue is my favourite shade. And this was quite lightly pressed, even though it's very pigmented. So we did hit that pan, which is very exciting. As I said, I want more pans in this. I want this to look more loved in the coming year, so hopefully we'll be able to do that. The next pan was from the Soft Glam palette from ABH, and we are talking about the shade Cypress Umber, which is this dark brown here. This is very similar to a shade I had in my pan that palette this year, so it was a little bit of a struggle to hit pan on, but we did. This was in a Pan Those Eyeshadows series. I'm very glad I've got a few pans in this palette from that project, just because otherwise I don't think I would have reached for it that much, and I don't think I would have loved it as much. So that is Cypress Umber. Next we have my Aha Honey palette, and this was natural use. This is the shade Sunburst. I hope you can see the pan there. This is a beautiful yellow with a hint of blue. It is perfect for the inner corners. It is so beautiful. It's just so different as well. This palette was rolled into a No Pan Left Behind project pan, and I just kept using this shade over and over again. I already had a big dip in it, so it was pretty easy to hit pan in, but it wasn't in like a specific hit pan project, so I'm very happy with that. And yeah, we've used this palette quite a bit this year. I'm very happy with it. I do want to pull this out in summer again because I really enjoyed it. Next we have my Juvia's Place Zulu palette, and we are talking about the blue. Again, I love blue, if you cannot tell from my look today. I hit pan in this in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project. I had this in for 1 month and I used it 12 times in 1 month. That just proves how much I adore this shade. It is so good. This ranked very high in my ranking my Pan Those Eyeshadows video. If you have not seen that, I will link it in the cards above. I ranked every single eyeshadow that I worked on in my Pan Those Eyeshadows project this year. It was so fun. But I love this shade so much. This palette as a whole is so beautiful. I'm glad I got to work on it even more this year. Next we have my, this is washing me out so badly, but this is my Bella Pierre's All Stars palette, and we are talking about the shade 27, which is this blue matte. Can you notice a theme? Can you? This was very easy to hit pan on. These shades are very lightly pressed, so I think I can hit a lot more pans in this in the coming year as well. But this was, I'm pretty sure this was natural use as well. This was not in a project that I remember, so it was always fun to have natural use pans. Back to the Soft Glam, we have the shade Sienna here. This is just a slightly lighter, warmer, more orangey brown matte, and I don't wear neutrals that often, but when I do, I like those shades. They're very nice. I was working on a lot of cool tone browns this year, so it was nice to have some more warm tones to work on. So next was the e.l.f. Truffles palette, which is my Pan That palette. I'm not going to show you my Pan That palette because I am going to have a big finale coming very, very soon after Christmas. So if you are interested in what how I did in my Pan That palette project, stick around because you do not want to miss it. It is an incredible finale. I'm so proud of myself. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. But next is the shade 2 from my e.l.f. Truffles palette. Next is my Violet Voss Nicole Concealio palette, and it is the shade Palm Tree. I did have this in a Pan Those Eyeshadows series, and I loved this shade. This is such a beautiful green to brown duochrome. I could wear this to uni. It wasn't too like in your face colourful, but it wasn't too like boring. I really, really did love this shade. I have actually decluttered this palette, but I am planning to depot Palm Tree and Boop Boop just because I adore those shades too much. I'm not ready to let go of those shades yet. Next we have my first single shadow. This is Colourpop Ritz. This is like a staple in my everyday makeup routine for uni. It just makes my eyes look like wet and so shimmery, so sparkly. It is absolutely beautiful. I'm sure if you know a lot about the Colourpop Super Shock shadows, you would have heard about Ritz. It is probably like one of the most popular shades. It is gorgeous, and I've heard a lot of people say that it's very easy to hit pan in Super Shocks, which is very, very true. But then it's all uphill from there because trying to finish one of these is impossible. It definitely gives you a false sense of security with how fast it is to hit pan. Next is my Sunset Horizons palette. I have actually decluttered this, but the shade we're talking about is Oasis, which is the shimmer blue here. This, if I remember, took like 3 uses to hit pan on. A little bit disappointing, but blues, I wear them all the time, so I was not too mad at it. But yeah, this palette, I mean, I spoke a lot about it in my palette declutter. If you haven't seen it, I will link it above. But this palette just didn't do it for me. Okay, back to the Carnival. This again was a natural use pan, and we are talking about the Hype, which is this green matte here. This is such a beautiful shade. Like I have nothing bad to say about this palette. It is so gorgeous, and we hit a tiny, tiny baby pan, as you can see. Again, everything that I said earlier in the video still stands. I want to use this so much more. It looks not as loved as I want it to look. I want this to look absolutely beaten up by the end of 2023. So the next shade again comes from my Pan That palette. Again, I'm not going to show it, but it was the shade number 1. And that was like a taupey, shimmery gunmetal kind of shade. Back to the Sunset Horizons, this is the shade Dusk. This was in a Pan Those Eyeshadows series. I did not like this shade. I don't like pink tones very much at all. I love these more grungy, blue-green kind of shades. This like girly pink, not for me. It did not take that long to hit pan on. It was a very, very dusty, kick-uppy shade, and it wasn't that pigmented. So I was okay, I was safe. Next is another beautiful shade. This comes from the Just My Luck palette from Colourpop. It is the shade Mary Jane in the center here. This is such a unique shade. It is like a shimmer, chartreusey, greeny yellow. It's like an acid color. Absolutely gorgeous. I love this shade. This was in a Pan Those Eyeshadows project. I loved wearing it in the inner corner to like add a little something to looks, or all over the lid for like it looks yellow but with a hint of something else. It is so unique, so beautiful. I adore this shade so much. Next is from my Soph X Revolution palette. This was my Pan That palette last year, and this was the shade Mixed Berries. Now, when I was working on this palette last year, I did not like this shade. I still don't like this shade. This is my least favorite shade in the whole palette, but I wanted to push myself to at least hit pan on it, and I did manage to do that, as you can see. But this palette is very banged up. I am going to be using this a lot. I do want to finish this in the not too distant future. It won't be my Pan That palette next year, but maybe the year after I will come back to it and really try and finish it, because I do like this palette, but there are a few shades that I'm just not that keen on. Next is from my Modern Renaissance palette, and it is the shade Burnt Orange. I did roll this into my Pan Those Eyeshadows series kind of midway this year, just because I wanted to get some use out of it, because I knew I would be using it as a Pan That palette next year. So I wanted to get a little bit of a head start on it and not have too much of like a full palette to work on next year, because that is just so overwhelming. So I did hit pan on Burnt Orange first. I'm not sure if you can see that pan there. This again was in a Pan Those Eyeshadows series, and it was a chosen shade. Next is my Book of Magic palette, and we rolled in the shade Potion to my Pan Those Eyeshadows series. I didn't like the shade. It was a putty kind of formula that BeautyBay tends to do, and it just creases so badly on me, and it was too dark to use as like an all over the lid shade. I like having very light shades over my lid, so this was a little bit difficult. This was not a fun time for me, even though it's blue. I love blues, but just not this dark of a shimmer blue. But we hit pan on it. You can see, hopefully, a tiny, tiny baby pan. That is enough for me. I hit that and I was like, right, I'm done. Moving on. And now back to the Sunset Horizons palette. My Pan Those Eyeshadows series loved this palette this year. I'm glad someone did. This is the shade Hibiscus. It was like a kind of Barney purple matte. Fine. I don't know, because this was rolled in so often to my Pan Those Eyeshadows series, I really got to use it a lot, and that was not good for this palette. If I hadn't have used it this much this year, I probably would have kept it, because I didn't know how much I didn't like it, if that makes sense. But because this was rolled in so often, I really got a good understanding for it, and I just realised I didn't like it. These aren't my colours. These are too like bright and like, I don't know, flowery kind of colours. I like the grunge. I like the kind of blues and greens and murky kind of cool tone shades. It's not this. So next we had Smoky Bronze, which is this shade up here. When I was working on this as a Pan That palette, I didn't like the fact that there were 3 golds in the palette, and I still don't. So I'd hit pan on these two, and I hadn't hit pan on this one, but I managed to hit pan on this one this year. I will probably, if I do start working on this again, will franken these 3 together maybe, because as I said, having 3 golds, which are pretty similar, like this is more warm, this is neutral, this is cool, but you just don't need that. In my opinion, you don't need 3 golds. I think that's kind of crazy. And a little bit redundant. So I'll probably definitely franken these 2 together. Maybe I'll keep this one as it is. I don't know. But yeah, I really put off panning this because I was still kind of burnt out from these 2. But I did do it, as you can see. There it is. Okay, next is actually a single. I started incorporating single shadows into my Pan Those Eyeshadows series kind of mid to late this year, and this was the first one. This is Rose Quartz from LA Splash, and as you can see, we managed to hit pan in this in my Pan Those Eyeshadows series. I did start incorporating singles just because my single magnetic palettes are untouched. Or they were. They're a little bit more banged up now because obviously I've started incorporating them in a project, but it just made me sad to open them and have them all just like untouched for years. So I did kind of start incorporating them into my Pan Those Eyeshadows. So I have got a few singles at the later part of this video, which I am very glad about, and I probably will continue to do that in 2023 just because it makes me happy to work on singles and not just palettes. Okay, going back to the Modern Renaissance, we also hit pan on Raw Sienna, which is this shade here. This is a very rusty pan, so I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see it, but that is a huge issue with the Modern Renaissance palette I've seen from other people's videos. Rusty pans, not great, and that is a big reason why a lot of people decide to pan this palette. I'm not panning it for that reason. I'm just panning it because it is old. It is my oldest palette, so but yeah, the same thing applies. I did work on this shade just to get a little bit of a head start for next year. Next is Ranch from the J Star Conspiracy palette. This is a really vibrant white inner corner shade, I should say. I do not support J Star in any way. That is why all of his shades have been depotted. I just want to put that out there. I want to say that in every video that I feature some of his things in. I know it is a big thing for some people, me included. I just want people to know I do not support him in any way. But I hit pan in this, I think in my Fantasy project pan. It was really easy to hit pan on. You can see it's a very, very like precise pan. So I used a very, very small brush just to use it in my inner corner. It is really, really blinding. It is beautiful. Next is another single. This is from my Revolution Chameleon palette. I did depot this. And this is the shade 1. It is a white to blue kind of duochrome. A little bit like Lumi from the Blue Moon palette. I love that shade so much. I do want to finish this in the coming year just because it is very, very, very shallow in the pan. So I think I can do that. And if I can do that, that would be amazing. But this was actually in my Project 10 uses and I was able to hit pan in it through that. Next, obviously there is a theme towards the end of this video. This is another single shadow. This is my Pearls from the J-Star Conspiracy palette. And as you can see, I've almost finished it. I've been using this as a lid setting shade every single day for about 2 months now. And yeah, very, very good progress. I will be able to finish this very, very, very soon, which I'm very excited about. One more lid setting shade out of my collection. I have way too many of them, so this is going to be amazing when it's done. Next is from my Blue Moon palette, and this is the shade Clued In. You can see that pan there. Again, another blue shade. I love blue. I love blue eyeshadow. This, as you can see, very deep pan. We all know that Colourpop mattes are very hard to hit pan on, so this took a while. This was a commitment, but we did it. I'm very proud of the fact that we did it. I do want to get more use out of this palette as well because it is one of my favourites and it does look quite unloved apart from this shade. I don't know, I do want to get more pans in that. And finally, my latest pan is from my Those Eyeshadows. This is the shade Conspiracy from the J-Star Conspiracy palette. It's like a muted green shimmer, and as you can see, we did manage to hit pan. So that is it. That is all the eyeshadow pans that we hit pan in 2022. Quite a long video. Hopefully I can edit it down a little bit, but I'm really proud of myself. My goal was to hit pan in 30 eyeshadows, but I think 27 is okay. And I am pre-filming this. It is the 18th of December right now. So who knows? Maybe we'll hit pan in a few other shades towards the end of the year. Maybe. I'm not counting on it. I'm very proud of myself for what I've done just anyway. I think 27 is a really, really good amount of shadows that I've hit pan on this year. So let me know in the comments below, how many eyeshadow pans have you hit pan on this year? I would love to know. Have you beaten me? Are we about the same? I'm just very curious and very nosy. So that is the end of this video, guys. If you did enjoy it, like and subscribe because it would mean the world to me. Christmas is coming, or is it already gone? I don't know. The power of pre-filming. I have no idea. Have an incredible day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!